What's going on, guys? We are back to talk a little bit more about Johnnyboi's Fusion Tournament, what's coming next as well. Sorry there hasn't been that many videos this week. Been incredibly busy, plus the state of the world. Sometimes you just don't care. You just don't want to make a video because it's not important right now. But we're back. We're back. Let's talk a little bit about how North America wrapped up with Johnnyboi's Fusion Tournament. Then we'll go over to Europe and talk about all that. So, let's head over to North America, where Space Station... like everyone's saying that at least for the qualifiers for the crew battle format 1v1, very important. Well, Space Station didn't care about any of that for 1v1s because they got dominated in their 1v1, losing the first killer. But it doesn't matter because they win 3s and 2s, and this is with the lopsided points that we kind of hinted at in our last video when I didn't really agree with how Johnnyboi did the points, and we'll get to that in a little bit when we talk about Europe. But Space Station with less value on first places, more value going the distance in many brackets. Space Station, they still prevailed. They got a 4-3 over Envy, very close series here. And then they got the 4-0 over Affinity in 2v2. But hats off to Johnnyboi with the seeds. The number 1 seed in every single one of these won it all. My boy, J-Rush. Couldn't take down Line Blaze. I was a little upset. And then first killer wins here. The only match that we really didn't get to see that a lot of people wanted to see was First Killer versus Magic Bear. Magic Bear had poor internet throughout, so we didn't really get to see that matchup that a lot of people wanted to check out, but didn't happen. Rogue, though, they come out number 2 out of all this with 31 points, with 1 win and 2 spots in the semifinals. Then you got Space Station with 2 wins and then a loss in the quarterfinals. And followed by Affinity, who was the only other team to have all 3. It was Rogue and Affinity to have 3 teams into the semifinals, and they made 1 final as well to add on to that. Then after that, we had some ties with the 72-piece Chicken McNuggets at 11 points, tied with Team Envy as well. They both made it to 1 final, so good for them. Divine Division, they also tie. And there was no tiebreaker in this. It was just the money was split evenly across the board between those two. Divine Vision as well. They tied in Stromboli with 0 points. So that's how it worked out for NA. Now let's talk about Europe and what happened with the point change. So before this all happened, we'll actually look at the points and try and compare a little bit here. Let me find where the points are. So Johnnyboi, before Europe started, decided to change up the points. One caveat was that NA, nothing would have changed because of it, and I think he got a little bit lucky because of that. Because the reason why you do a point change like this is to keep more people in the run-in for longer. As we saw with North America, where here we'll show it with quarterfinals, they get 3 points. Then you get +4 by making the semifinals, +5 for winning it all. It was basically the complete opposite before. The quarterfinals was the most valuable. If we go back, 7 points for that, so +7. Then only +4 to make it to a semifinal, so not nearly as important. Then +6 for a first place finish, which obviously added back on to make it almost as important as a quarterfinal match, but it still was not as important. Like if you had 2 teams going heads up and they didn't advance any further throughout the bracket, quarterfinals was the most important game. So it didn't really make a lot of sense. And then you get into instances like Rogue and Affinity. They had 3 teams make the win their quarterfinal matches, and then basically every other team was eliminated because there was no shot because they couldn't catch up, except for Space Station, of course. So he changed that up a little bit into making first place way more valuable and quarterfinals be the least valuable. It's still important, obviously, but now this does change some things. Like if you come into the finals and you make the quarterfinals, it's not as good as the first place. Do people agree with that or not? Personally, I do. I like it to be more lopsided for the first place side, and I think Johnny was trying to avoid ties as well, as best that he could, so he didn't want to have the same increase. So he didn't want to have 3, 5, and 7 points, because then there's more chances for ties, compared to a 3, 7, 12, where you keep increasing by 1 point each time for each of these rounds. And if you guys can hear my fan, I'm sorry. I don't think you can, but it's pretty hot in here. Anyway, so that's how it all works out here. Now, we didn't get to do some updates and some predictions throughout the week. We're basically running into near the end here, and guess what? Vitality's really good at Rocket League. I think they're, 18-1 right now throughout this tournament. They're 8-1 in 3s. They are 8-0 in 2s. So that's 16. They're 20. I'm sorry, 20-1 right now in games. Absolutely nuts by Vitality. They've won 5 series. They could very possibly win another series here for the 1v1. And Vitality, I'm sorry, guys, but they're going to walk away with the win here. One nice thing with this team leaderboard is the numbers that are bolded are the numbers that are basically locked in place, and those teams have been eliminated in those brackets. So as you can see, Vitality, they're still alive in all 3. They're in 2 finals, and they have a chance to be in a 3rd today. That is happening today. They're looking really good. The only team that has a chance to catch up to them is, well, there's 2 teams, I guess. Dignitas, I guess, technically could. If Dignitas win the 3v3 bracket, then they would have 18 points. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They would only have 17 as well, right? I'm trying to think. Let's see. 12. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They would have 15 points. So they can't even catch them. The only team that can catch Vitality right now is Oxygen. And the reason being is because Oxygen hasn't had to play Vitality yet in any of their matches. And maybe that is why. We'll have to see. 1v1 didn't work out for them. But basically, Oxygen has to win both brackets. As we can see here right now, they only have 2 semifinal spots. They're playing both their games today. If they make it to the finals in both, they're up to 14 points, which would still not be enough to catch up to Vitality. And then they would have to win one of those. Then they would finally catch up. So they would be at 19 points. And that's only if Vitality loses every other game they have. Pretty tough. Now, if they win both finals, Oxygen, then it gets a little bit easier for them because they'll have 24 points total. So then Vitality would have to win 2 games here in any of these. So they would have to win maybe a 1v1 to make a final. They would be at 21 points. And then they would have to win a final, would get them to 26 points. So very, very likely Vitality walks away with this. They're just dominant right now, and it's looking like that we might start seeing another one of those like all-time great teams. Like Alpha has been nuts in 2v2. A few games that if you didn't get to see, now I didn't get to watch a lot of this, but a few games that caught my eye were the Dignitas versus Sandrock Gaming went to Game 7. So definitely check that one out. Spoilers, obviously. And then also Oxygen, the 8th seed coming into the 2v2, takes out Sandrock Gaming, the number 1 seed. So that's the first time a number 1 seed has fallen throughout this bracket, throughout North America or Europe. So that was a big win there for Oxygen with Astral and Chaussette coming out on top. So definitely check that out. Definitely check out the 2v2 games for just the yummy dad jokes and the CJ just bashing Scrub Killer the entire time, so definitely go check that out. But that is where we stand right now. That continues today and ends tomorrow. After that, then we got more tournaments, and it's just going to keep going. We got Dazarin with codename Covert happening, and so this will take place Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday of this next week. It is a $9,000 tournament for himself, and the way it works basically is, well, let's go into what the prize is. I think it's first place is $4,000. Then you go down to $1,500, $1,000. Fourth gets $750. Fifth, $6,450. 7th, 8th, $150. So the signups are still open for this tournament until the end of today. So if you want to sign up, it is a completely open tournament, I think. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They have 8 teams that are invited, or 10 teams that are invited, actually. And then only 6 come out of the qualifier portion to make the group stage. Now we'll go over what exactly that is. So qualifiers, I assume it's just double a limb. Yeah, just double a limb to find our teams. It looks like they have 8 teams qualifying. Oh, no, I'm sorry, because now we got day 2. So day 2, a little bit wonky here, but it's basically a bracket, like a normal sort of thing. Looks like, yeah, I guess that works. Okay, yeah, because if you win or lose here, you would both make it into the semis. Okay, so you have your 6 teams that'll qualify with the 10 teams from the RLCS, and then you go into a group stage. Now, I'm not a big fan of 4-team round robin, because I know a lot of people at Season 7 World Championship kept saying that, if only these groups were 4 teams, round robin would be so different than what we had in 3 teams. It's not really that different. It's almost exactly the same, because if you have one team that is dominant and goes 3-0, then the other 3 teams are basically in a 3-team round robin. Now, obviously, they have a chance to take down that other team, but it's also the opposite way, where if there's one incredibly weak team, it turns into a 3-team round robin, and you can have those same type of tiebreakers happen that are kind of weird. Then you also run into the case of, like, a team is 0-2, a team is 1-1. The 0-2 team literally cannot make it through. The 1-1, like, if they win, they're in, right? And it turns into, well, the 0-2 team doesn't really care. It kind of hurts the other team that was 1-1 or something at the time, who has to play the 2-0 team. That might be really good. 2-0 probably making it through anyway. But you know, like, that can happen where a team, the match might not matter for them, while the other team, it matters for everything, right, to advance. So generally, not a huge fan of round robin. Rather double elim for this. So this is very similar to what Lawler's doing. Lawler's doing double elim groups. And then he will have, if there's a rematch in the lower bracket, you get a 1-game advantage in a best of 7. But for Daz, he's doing round robin. Now, the one thing I do love, double elimination tournament here to end it all out. So Lawler's going for single elim. Dazarin, to compare the 2 North America tournaments, is going for double elimination. So that's going to be really fun. So that is over the weekend on Saturday and Sunday. So definitely check that out. So you'll get your 2 teams from each group that will be seeded based on probably qualifiers, based on other results, and all of that. Like G2, very likely the 1 seed, and so on and so forth. Yeah, so that's how that is all working for Dazarin's tournament. Again, $9,000 on the line. There's also a prize for MVP, which I kind of like. Let's see where that's listed. I think it's listed all the way at the bottom here. $550 there. So definitely going to be fun. Definitely watch Dazarin, support my boy Daz, and it's going to be great. So qualifiers, again, Monday and Tuesday. The signups close today. I have the link right here. I will put it in the description below. And then after Monday and Tuesday, then you go into Wednesday and Thursday are the group stages. I assume Group A and Group B will play out or something like that. Or maybe not. Like, I guess every team is playing on the day because there's round 1 and round 2. But who knows? Not really sure. But that'll be Wednesday and Thursday. Then Saturday and Sunday, you go into the bracket. So that's going to be a grand old time. And then guess what? There's more tournaments coming. Like, if I had to do quick predictions here, which we're not going to go too heavy into this, but G2 is, like, obviously the clear favorites to win this tournament. Now, the one thing is it depends how he does his groups. So the one bad thing about being like a 1 seed when you go into a group stage of 4 teams is you actually have a harder time trying to advance because say it's a perfect group, right? And it depends how he does it. It would be the 1st seed, the 8th seed, the 9th seed, and then the dead last seed. So it really turns into, all right, that team that's the worst coming into this probably goes 0-3, right? Then it comes down to a 1 seed, an 8 seed, and a 9 seed. That's all RLCS teams compared to, say, so the 1 seed obviously has an easier chance to win their group because that they get the 8th and 9th seed, but a harder chance to advance out of the group. So there is a chance for upsets because, again, their 3rd place team in that group is 9th. That's if he does it this way. He might make it a little bit different to make perfect brackets later. But just something to keep your mind on about teams with higher seeds. Again, it's easier for them to win their group, but it is harder to advance out of their group, if that makes sense. So we'll see how it all plays out. Compared to, like, all right, so for example, a 4 and 5 seed would be in, like, say, Group B, right? It'd be 4 or 5, and then 13-14 or 12-13, whatever that is. 12-13, I'm sorry, yeah. So, like, obviously a 12th seed for that 3rd place team in Group B, much worse than a 9th seed, right? That's not an RLCS team. It's a rival series team, yada, yada, yada. So it's easier to make it out of this group. But again, it's like a coin flip for the 4 and 5 seed of who wins the group, right? And the one thing for that group, it's not as important maybe. And again, that's if this is how this all plays out. Because if you get in 2nd, you're basically right below the other team. So it's not going to hurt you as much. Just something to keep in mind. It's going to be really fun. Definitely, again, support Dazarin. He's getting casters lined up to cast this tournament. Going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. Definitely check it out. And again, Johnnyboi Fusion Tournament's going on for the rest of today. And tomorrow, that closes out where Vitality very likely walking away with the win there. For number 2, looking like Oxygen if they can pull out some wins. But who knows? Because Sandrock Gaming might have a lock on that 1v1 spot, right? So they'll probably end up with 12 points. So if they end up with 12, Oxygen has to win at least both semis, like if they don't have to beat Vitality. So we'll see how it all works out. But that is it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.